Mulan is such an underrated movie.
Totally agree.
It is one of the most badass women. Like when I get asked about who some of my growing up role model characters were,
Mulan.
oh my God, yes. I just think that it's so crazy how little credit that movie gets in terms of what are the best Disney.
It just didn't have like a breakout song from Mulan.
You know what it also was?
Like the Man Out of
No,
You?
it did, man. It had some songs.
Cody was
But you
pissed
know,
by that.
but you know what it was though?
But they didn't. It wasn't like, oh my God, it was the #1 Billboard, like Colors of the Wind.
Yes, play this. This is one of my favorites.
You get a flag for this one, I'll tell you that. But
I'm just saying
sing it for you,
this
Christian.
didn't have the same cachet. I'm saying pop culture across the board. Billboard 100.
Aladdin and
Mulan didn't have that hit.
Beauty and the Beast.
There's also a reason why, because
I get what you're saying.
If you go
See what I'm
back,
saying?
I agree, but you go back to that time of Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Little Mermaid, Lion King, right? That was in the height of that style of animation. Also, it was that style of animation was it. And then 95 hits, because this Mulan, I think, was 94. Okay. And I think
Lion King was 94.
So when was Mulan? Like 96?
Mulan was maybe 97?
Then it definitely makes my
I
point.
don't know.
Then.
Let me see.
Because 95 changed the game completely. 98. So that makes my point completely. Because 95
trivia schmodown.
Yeah, 95 changed the game with Toy Story.
Yeah.
When Toy Story came out, they was like, oh, what's this kind of animation? Because people were starting to get that, and I think unfairly tired of that style animation, because the Mulans and Tarzans, they didn't have that type of hit the way that Hercules, the way that these other movies do. Disney fans loved them, right? But they weren't like this crossover huge movies the way that, Aladdin. Mulan did very well, but not the same way as these other movies did.
And I can argue with that too a little bit. It's the first one of these musicals that doesn't like feature on an animal or like a mythic creature. Mulan is about a person. Yeah. Right?
She had a
dragon.
Eddie Murphy.
Eddie
Right?
Murphy.
I get what you're saying. It's maybe not the main focus.
Right.
I just think when we talk about it today, it's so interesting because Lion King, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, they all get thrown around more often. But Mulan, I don't hear as much, and that was such a staple.
Do you know what, like, the flip for me though is Mulan is probably the one I'm most looking forward to of these
Because
ones.
of that.
Because it's a live action.
And you're going to get an epic scale from it for
correct.
sure.
Well, in terms of bringing something to live action, Mulan is perfect for that. I mean, that's like the made for live action movie.
You know what I also realized that they're not doing anymore, and I think it's a lot because of that Arthur movie. And the Aladdin trailers, I haven't seen Guy Ritchie's name once. Have you?
No.
I haven't seen his name once.
I wonder what they're thinking.
They were pushing
scenes.
his name big, and then Arthur came out, and people thought he was going to get fired off that movie. I did, and you haven't even seen once from the director of Sherlock Holmes. You haven't seen any of that. You just seen Aladdin. They're just building off the Aladdin fan base, and they're not even acknowledging him.
I think you're dead accurate about why.
Right? Yes, Arthur's.
It wasn't
bad.
Listen, it wasn't great, but it wasn't good.
It wasn't good.
Do we have is there any Pocahontas talk?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I do like the Colors of the Wind.
I think that will be a tough one to make live action.
Yeah.
I think there's some things that they would have to figure out.
Well, John Smith in general, all that stuff. But I mean, they did that.
They might want. Yeah, they're probably staying away from that for a while.
Stay away from it.
Yeah,
they're like, we'll get to it when we have to.
Yeah. But Roxy and everybody, huge Mulan fans in the chat right now.
Yeah.
And yes, awesome. I understand everybody's yelling at me because I didn't mention it. But Reflections is the other song in Mulan that I love.
Yeah,
because it's Lea Salonga. I had a big, musical phase.
You know what I love?
I'm just saying,
generation also. I mean, you're an animated guy. You watched everything.
Yeah.
But Roxy
older.
comes from exactly. I think that when Roxy was growing up, that movie for sure. You and I were past the Disney stage at that thing too. That's another reason why.
Snow White was when I remember when I saw it. I liked it, but I was like, oh, that story. Even as a kid, I was like, it's a little more dated. Mulan was like, look at this chick, she's killing it.
And I think because it was like all my cousins that were my age or a little bit younger all had like the Disney VHSs that didn't fit in the shelf because they were those big white cases, right? And they watched Mulan, but everybody was always like, let's watch Lion King, let's watch Little Mermaid, whatever. Mulan didn't come on because we were older for it, so we didn't, you know what I mean? We were getting closer to the DVD age. We were getting to that Toy Story animation, all that kind of stuff. It wasn't in my zeitgeist. And again, had there been a song that came on the radio and everybody was like, "This is the Mulan song," I probably would have been more into the. It just didn't hit the radio like a lot of those other Disney songs did.
What about Tarzan? Because that was huge for me. I love Tarzan because Phil Collins.
That song.
There were a lot of songs that hit the radio.
He won an Oscar for it.
I dressed as her for like 4 Halloweens.
Yeah, they made a
Yes.
Broadway play out of that.
They made the Broadway play, but some of those songs, you know,
That's why they made the Broadway play.
I can't remember, but yeah, some of his songs were hitting like top 40. you know.
Look, that was one that we showed my daughter, and we were singing those songs all
I
weekend
love
long.
I
How did
love
you
those
guys
songs.
feel about Esmeralda?
Oh, Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I like that movie.
Demi Moore.
Oh, yeah, that's
it's
so good.
fine. It's not one of my favorites.
Aren't they? I think they're making that, right?
They are doing
Oh, they
Hunchback,
are?
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah.
Just as a princess, I was
Yeah.
wondering, how do you guys feel about Esmeralda? Did
think
she
I
stand
ever-
out to you
I don't
guys at all?
remember enough, but they got to make Black Cauldron. Black Cauldron.
Interesting.
They should, because it's the people think it's probably the worst Disney movie.
I feel
that they've
like
done.
you've pitched this a couple times.
The Black
now.
Cauldron.
Yeah, yeah.
I think to do a fantasy movie on the Black Cauldron would be
don't
really
think
cool.
I know
it.
It's great. Yeah, I loved it, and it was because I liked all that fantasy stuff back then, and I still do.
Yeah.
And I just think that you could do to be able to do a fantasy film on the Disney side of things would be really cool.
Yeah.
to do. So that'd be
When's
interesting.
Lady and the Tramp? That's
It's
next
Disney
year?
Plus.
Disney Plus.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it comes at the end of this year.
This is when I like to chat. Everybody's putting in fun Disney movies here.
Yeah.
Fox and the Hound. That was
That
huge
would
for me.
make it do that.
That
They
one.
could do
That one
one.
would be great
Yeah.
to see live action.
Yeah,
I
That
for
could
think
sure.
also kind of be a Disney Plus, maybe.
Would you have
That's-
Corey Feldman
yeah.
come back and do the voice?
Yeah.
Did he originally do Fox and the Hound?
Yeah, he was a
did.
kid. He was like 7
He was
or 8.
Todd, right? He was the fox, or
He
was he
the
Copper?
fox. He was the fox. No.
Was he Copper?
I'm a
I can't
hound
remember.
dog. He was the
he was
the dog.
he was Copper,
He
the
was
dog.
the dog. Yeah. Yeah, he was
Fox and the Hound.
He was
was
More
younger.
you know.
I enjoyed that.
It's true.
Any other interesting suggestions in there? It's like hard to even remember all.
Black
of
Cauldron.
Hercules.
Hercules is
Oh,
great.
I loved Meg.
Oliver and
She's-
Company.
They
she's-
have- well, the point is that they have a lot of what they can still do for sure. Robin Hood, man, with the fox.
best-
Robin
the
Hood
best
was a
Robin
big
Hood
one
with
in
the
there.
fox.
The best Robin Hood
Yeah,
ever
man.
made is the animated Fox.
I'm not going to disagree with
It's
that.
great. It's so great.
I'm not going
incredible.
to disagree with that. I love that.
I watched that so many times.
Robin
at
Hood and
VHS
Little John
wore out.
running through the forest. Hoodlolly, hoodlolly, golly, what a day. I love that. I used to do that. I used to remember that movie. Was that 80? Was that 1980?
It was right around.
Had to
then.
have been 80.
Yeah.
To
Maybe 81.
make at risk of making myself sound like a old grandma here, they just don't make movies like this anymore. I feel.
Yeah.
That's the truth. I think every generation will say that.
Yeah,
though.
100%,
Every generation
but
says
like,
that.
when
every
I
time a
think
movie comes on,
about-
my wife says, "Oh, it's no Pretty Woman." Everything.
Yeah. But it's just when I think about these movies that just moved everything, then I think about the
Yeah.
animated movies that I'm seeing today that are still great.
There's some really
but-
great ones.
So really great ones, but I don't know.
It's different. I mean, look, the same, and
You
there's a
Lion King?
there's a 7-year-old kid that just saw Wreck-It Ralph for the first time yesterday, right? And in 15, 20 years from now,
They think
we'll
that
say,
too.
"Oh, they just don't make movies like Wreck-It Ralph."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's same thing with
I
our
know.
parents see movies.
Dude,
I
you know how
was-
far off we were?
By what?
1973.
Wow.
What
started-
year did you guess?
80.
As you
Wow.
started to say that, I was like, it's funny because as you start so far off, I'm like, wait a minute, that movie was the 70s.
Yeah.
And then I was so
You have to guess if it would win an Oscar, though.